What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today I want to take a look at commander decks, specifically the two commander decks that will be coming alongside the Brothers War that will be releasing next month, or actually a little bit later this month as you're watching this. And it's pretty exciting. This is going to be some cool stuff. There are two decks specifically. One is helmed by Urza, Chief Artificer, and the other by Mishra, Eminent One. It is, of course, the Brothers. You know, they have the Brothers as the face cards. Makes perfect sense. And we have three color variants of the Brothers, so clearly they're kind of designed with Commander in mind. Well, they're the Commander product. Of course they are. You know, and that's okay. So, interestingly enough, both decks feature a lot of artifacts, and kind of the gimmick of these decks, which actually I think is kind of brilliant, is every single card, including the lands, will be in the old retro frame. Given that this set is like the ultimate throwback, we're going back to a time and place in Magic's history that was hinted at in the 90s, and we're getting to actually watch the events unfold for the very first time. It makes sense that Wizards should tap into some of that nostalgia and bring the old card frame back. So we see that here. We have the gold, the gold border for our face cards. Now, Urza, Chief Artificer, is an Esper Planeswalker, so it's white, blue, black. So it's 3 white, blue, black to cast for a 4/5 with affinity for artifact creatures, which does help with commander tax, because commander tax is a generic mana cost, or you know, it's generic mana cost. So you could be playing this for as little as 3, potentially multiple times in a game if you have a wide board. Pretty cool. Artifact creatures control have Menace. At the beginning of your end step, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So this definitely wants to go wide with artifact creatures. That is the name of the game. If you have a lot of artifact creatures down, they become very difficult to block because they all have Menace. And it produces one at the end of every single turn. And that one has an opportunity to be pretty darn big if you have another, you know, if you have a decent army to back it up. All in all, this is a really cool card. And this is the kind of thing I wouldn't mind building around anyway. I mean, it feels like a commander card, right? Like, you want to have an army, and this helps. This becomes easier to cast if you have that army, and it helps buff that army up in cool, meaningful ways. So, good stuff. Now, Mishra, Eminent One, is Grixis. So it's 2 blue, black, red for a 5/4. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of target non-creature artifact you control, except its name is Mishra's War Form, and is a 4/4 construct artifact creature in addition to its other types. It gains haste until end of turn, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is fantastic, frankly. It creates a token copy of another non-creature artifact. So you have another artifact down, an Aetherflux Reservoir, you know, Karn Silex, or any number of crazy artifacts, and it comes into play as a 4/4 construct. Also, interestingly, you can copy legendary artifacts with this. So you can copy legendary artifacts because its name changes to Mishra's War Form. So you can copy a Boldus' Citadel with this, no problem. That's just one example. I don't know, there are tons of, or Stonebrain, which is a new one that's coming out in Brothers War. You can create a copy of that, which is pretty darn cool. And you have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step, so be aware of that. I think there are going to be some crazy, ridiculous wombo combos you can pull off with this guy. And you could build it aggressively, or you could build it goofy combo. It's kind of, you know, both are on the table. Because you're creating these copies every single turn. You can leverage them in cool ways. Or you could just accept that it's just going to give you an additional 4/4 body, and you can go to town with. So, pretty cool. All in all, I think both cards are really well done. Also, interestingly enough, the power and toughness, you'll notice, is actually a mirror. Urza is a 4/5. Mishra is a 5/4. Kind of neat. So let's jump into the deck lists themselves and take a look at what else is going to be included in these decks to see if they're worth picking up. All right, so here we go. We are actually on MTG Goldfish for this. I wanted to use the official Magic the Gathering deck lists, like they have a gallery set up for this. However, I noticed that they don't actually have the original, or they don't have the correct frames linked to those deck lists on the official one, whereas MTG Goldfish does. So we're going to take a look at this. By the way, Goldfish, not sponsored in any way, but they're a great site. They collect a ton of information, put out some great content. Like, anyway, love them, so we're going to give them a little plug here. Anyway, so Urza's Iron Alliance. This is the Urza Chief Artificer deck, and let's see what we got in here. So we have a couple of bombs right off the bat, or at least some like real solid staples in Commander. We have Baleful Strix, which is just, if you're in Dimir, this card's great. Flying Death Touch. When it ETBs, draw a card. 1/1 for 2. Love it. Ethereum Sculptor is another one that a lot of people are going to be really jazzed to see in the old border. It's just good. It just makes your artifacts cheaper. Love it. We have a couple other new ones like Sanwar Avenger Ace. As long as artifact creatures you control is attacking, prevent all damage that would be dealt to Sanwar Avenger Ace. Whenever it taps, exile the top 6 cards of your library. You may cast vehicles or cast artifact spells from among them. Then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Give me an aggressive creature with card advantage. I'm happy. That's exactly what, and it even protects itself. Let's go. Yeah, so we also have like Steel Overseer in the old frame. This I think is going to be like cash money because it fits this deck like a glove. You want to have a lot of artifact creatures. That's the name of the game. You want them on board, and this just incentivizes you to have a lot of artifact creatures on the board. Absolutely fantastic. Scholar of New Horizons enters the battlefield with a +++ counter on it, and it's a 1/1. So it enters as a 2/2. Tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control. Search your library for a plains card, reveal it. If the opponent controls more lands than you may put the card onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Yes, white land ramp. I think that's gonna be pretty well sought after for sure. But yeah, so there are a lot of cards here. We're not gonna go through every single one of them, but they're just great. Oh, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Wreck Hunter specifically, because this is a 2/2 for black with flash. When Wreck Hunter enters the battlefield, choose target player. You create a tapped Power Stone token for each non-land card in that player's graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn. So what you want to do is hold mana up. When your opponent board wipes, throw this out, and you create a ton of Power Stone tokens. This looks to me like a fixed version of Dockside Extortionist. Yes, I said it. Now, Dockside Extortionist is a powerhouse and an absolute bomb because you get a ton of treasures just when it enters. Now, and you can use those treasures on anything. This, you have to jump through a couple more hoops, but it is a flash 2/2, which is nice. So even the floor on it's not bad. So you have to jump through a couple more hoops. You have to time it much better, unlike Dockside, which is just like, I play it after you've had a couple of turns, so I'll set up your mana rocks and I just out-ramp the board. This, on the other hand, you have to time it right, but if you do time it right, like if you have an opponent with like a sack deck, they do a bunch of sack stuff, they sacrifice 5-6 things on the turn, you throw this down, life is good. You could, play this post board wipe, like I mentioned at the top. Like, this thing is awesome. And you get the Power Stones, which are, if I had in a vacuum, do I want a Power Stone or a Treasure Token? I'm going to take the Treasure Token because it produces colored mana that is very flexible, but it's one-time use. Whereas the Power Stones, you tap them to create the generic mana, and you can do everything with them except cast non-artifact spells. Which, of course, we all cast a lot of non-artifact spells. That's just part of the game. So it is limited in a very real way. But I think this card is great. I don't think it's, like, amazing. Like, it's not going to break EDH by any means. But it is going to be a powerful play in decks like this that can leverage Power Stone mana to good effect. And might be wiping the board. So, yeah, I think this card's actually really good. Like, not amazing, not game-breaking, but, like, really, really solid. So, yeah, I would definitely keep an eye out for this one. Filigree Thrasher, 3/2 for 3. Whenever it attacks, you may discard a card. When you do, target creature defending player controls gets -X/-X till end of turn, where X is the number of artifacts you control, plus the number of artifact cards in your graveyard. And it has Partner. Oh, Armix, you are nasty. Oh, I believe this is a new card for this set. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'll be honest, actually, I don't follow the Commander products as closely as the standard products. So some of these might be reprints that I may not be aware of. But, like, this looks nasty. Like, this is just straight nasty. And it's got Partner. Get out of here. Yeah, Chief of the Foundry just buffs other artifact creatures. Fantastic. Chrome Courage, decent bread and butter artifact creature. Does the thing. Sweet. Dig Site Engineer, we have a 3/3 for 3. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 0/0 colorless construct creature token. With this creature gets +1/+1. Oh, you get a Construct. Anything that can produce these like Construct tokens are fantastic because they're going to get gigantic in this deck. So, absolutely fantastic. Love it. Oh man, Etch Champion Metalcraft. Etch Champion has protection from all colors as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. On a 2/2 body for 3, let's go. Yeah, Psymaster Thopterus in the old border. Again, this is a card that sees play in multiple formats. And this, I believe, is the very first old border printing of Sai. So as a result, this card alone is going to be worth a fair amount. And there's a lot of those. Like Alela, again, like this was a card that was introduced in Eldraine. A lot of people have Alela decks specifically and would love to get an old border version of Alela to helm that deck. So I think you will see people buying these decks and breaking them apart for the singles because of cards like this. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Oh, Solemn, the sad robot is here. To be honest, I would have loved if they brought the original artwork back because this was originally an invitational card. So that's what I wanted to see, but they chose not to. But they did give it the brown border treatment, which is pretty cool. So yeah, good stuff. Tashar, again, old border, love it. Like these decks are just sweet. Like they just have so many awesome callbacks. Like they're leveraging cool new made for Commander cards that fit the theme alongside just absolute classics over the last few years that have become Commander staples, and they've given them the old border treatment. Like, I think this is absolutely fantastic. Like, that Noxious Gearhulk, I need that Noxious Gearhulk in my life. I just do. Just look at it. Like, it's shocking, too, how well the artwork fits on the old frame. And I think it's kind of a testament to how good the old frame was, to be honest, because it's clearly designed to be flexible and kind of fit with what you're doing. In any event, I've been doing a lot of just looking at the cards and going, ooh, ah. But as we see, a lot of these cards are clearly designed to support the plan of going wide with artifact creatures. I just think it's, yeah. And they support you for having a lot of artifacts on board. So it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Thought Monitor, another one. Yeah, this is another one that old border, get out of here. This was a Modern Horizons 2 card that didn't like completely redefine how people saw affinity, but it worked really, really well. It's like, this is like if Mirror Enforcer and Thoughtcast just like got together, had a couple drinks, and 9 months later, Thought Monitor showed up. Yeah, this card's great. It's just really good. 2/2 effectively for 1 in a lot of situations with flying, and it draws 2 cards when it enters. Oh, and like Muldrifter was part of the party too. But anyway, yeah, great stuff. March of Progress, Preordained, Swords to Plowshares, D-Spark, Sphinxes, Rev, with like old school art that looks great in the gold border. I mean, I thought for a long time that Commander Precons were designed to be underpowered. Like, they were designed to be a good jumping off point with a couple of bombs, but for the most part, you were supposed to, like, take them as a starting point and, like, upgrade them to turn them into, like, good, viable decks. I thought that was the idea, but to be honest, I genuinely think these decks, as they stand right now, oh, there we have the Silex Blast, crazy. I genuinely believe these decks, straight out of the box, are going to be able to compete with some really good stuff out there. Like, these look fantastic. Not just, like, kind of decent, but full-on fantastic. Of course, in the artifact slot, we actually only have 13 artifacts that are like non-creature artifacts. But we have cards like Relic of Progenitus and Skull Clamp in the old border treatment. We also have the old border Soul Ring. Right now, these are going to be flooding the market because they're included in precons that are going to be on shelves, like, right from jump. But I believe that particular printing of Soul Ring is going to be worth quite a bit because old border is just sought after. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, I think these decks will age well from a collector's perspective. And I'm going to guess they're going to play pretty well straight out of the box, too. But yeah, we got the Signets, we got the Zori Signet, and Cranial Plating. If you've never had the opportunity to get completely wrecked by a Cranial Plating, yeah, this thing is savage. Absolutely savage. Because it says equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. As you can imagine, in a deck like this, that number is going to be pretty damn big. And on top of that, you can play black and attach Cranial Plating to target creature you control, or equip it for 1. The significance of that activated ability is that you can activate it at instant speed. Equipment, you can only equip at sorcery speed, but that ability you can activate at instant speed. So you attack with a wide board, your opponent declares their blockers, you select one of the creatures that isn't being blocked, activate this, attach Cranial Plating to it, you just got in for an obscene amount of damage. and may have just ended your opponent, like straight up. And if the creature you're on or that you attach to has like double strike or something, get out of here. It's over. And like, yeah, cranial plating is fantastic. It's just straight up awesome. So love it, absolutely love it. See, Kalo's Music Box. This is a legendary artifact for 2. Pay 1 white, tap, look at the top card of your library. You may exile it face down. Tap until the end of your turn. You may play cards you own, exiled with Kalo's Music Box. So it's a way of getting a little bit of card advantage. You do draw cards on it, but if at any point your opponent blows up the music box, either with a masked artifact destruction spell, or even something as simple as like a shatter or a vandal blast, like Kalo's Music Box, you then all the cards that you've exiled with it are just gone. So I don't know. I don't love it. I think it's okay though. It's a way of it's almost pay 1, tap, draw card, which on a 2-drop is obviously really good. So yeah, I think that's interesting. I like it. Liquid Metal Torque, also just a great mana rock. You love to see it. More signets. Swiftfoot Boots in the mix. This card is great. And we have, again, old printing of a commander staple. Old printing of a commander staple is kind of the bottom line of these decks. If you want to get your hands on old printings of commander staples, this is it. Yeah, they got you. Yeah. They're here. Like, yeah, Tempered Steel is a classic. Artifact creature control with +2/+2, and again, just exactly what this deck needs. And the other thing, so this is just the Urza deck, by the way. We're going to do a quick look at the Mishra deck as well. I'm not going to just keep droning on about old borders, although I'll probably still gush at a couple because it makes me happy. But the lands, actually, is another thing that's really awesome. They brought back the artifact lands. And they brought them back with new art. Now, when I say the artifact lands, yes, there are the bridges from, there's the bridges from Modern Horizons. Those are here too. But the ones I'm really excited about are the original Mirrodin artifact lands. So cards like Ancient Den. This is an artifact land that enters untapped and taps for a white. That's it. That's all it does. But there's one in every color, and they count as an artifact. So they're a land and an artifact. When they first printed these, they thought, I believe the thought was that, well, anything that hoses on artifacts, anything that prevents artifact activations, anything that can destroy artifacts can go after these lands. So as a result, they're more vulnerable than a regular land, which in theory makes sense. But the upside of being able to put an artifact into play with things like affinity and cranial plating running around in the format, the idea of being able to just play an artifact as your land drop, and it doesn't even enter tapped. Like, it was so good that they actually ended up being, I believe, banned in Modern. And I think they were even banned in Standard at the time when they were legal. Like, these things are just so good. It's absurd. And in this deck, they're going to be great. So, and they did old art, or they got new artwork for these lands specifically, which I think is actually really cool because the original artwork showcased the landscape of Mirrodin. And Mirrodin, prior to the Phyrexian corruption, was very shiny, it was very bright, it was almost futuristic in how it looked, which I think would kind of clash with the old frame. So it makes sense that they did new art that looks a little dingier, looks a little, a little bit more like Dominaria. Now, I don't know if it's like, I don't know for sure if they showcase Dominaria for all of them or not, but it certainly looks that way. And I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, like, we also have, like, yeah, Seat of the Synod, for example. Here's another one of them. Oh, here, let me put it in a way that I'm not blocking it, because that's awkward. There we go. Nope, I'm still... There we go, now we're talking. But yeah, there's another one. Like, the Synod was actually, like, part of, it was actually part of the, what was I talking about? I'm already... Yeah, uncut videos, it's a thing. But Seat of the Synod is actually, I believe, the governing body of the Vidalcan on Mirrodin. So, like, they have to kind of twist it a little bit to, like, make it work here, but I think it totally does. And at the end of the day, these cards are just awesome. They're new artwork. They're old bordered. What's not to love? Oh, and also there's, like, cards like Spire of Industry in here. Like, oh, Vault of Whispers is the other one. Yeah, which, by the way, this artwork is amazing. This is the black artifact land. Oh, gorgeous. Straight up gorgeous. Yeah, like, I think, so this is the Urza deck that we're looking at so far. I think this deck's going to be amazing. Urza's Iron Alliance, straight up, like, just awesome. I don't know what else to say. Looks great. Now, the other deck that we have is Mishra's Burnished Banner. And Mishra's Burnished Banner is built around Mishra Eminent One. So this is the one that can turn non-creature artifacts into an artifact creature token that needs to be sacrificed at the end step. So we care about sacrifice stuff. We care about ETB triggers. We care about non-creature artifacts. And as you can see, this deck actually has a lot more. It has 31 non-creature artifacts and only 20 creatures. So it's fewer creatures, more non-creature artifacts to give Mishra more to work with. Makes a lot of sense. So let's see what we got. Right off the rip, Slow Bad, Goblin Tinkerer, get Spice A-Rack on the phone, let him know your boy's back, baby. Slow Bad, Goblin Tinkerer, one in a red for a 1/2 Goblin Artificer. Sack an artifact, target artifact gains indestructible till end of turn. Mishra is producing a sackable artifact every single turn at the very least. If not, this deck is going to have stuff. There will be artifacts lying around. So it just allows, just protects your team so well. Yeah, Audacious Reshapers, 3/3 for 3. Tap, sack an artifact, reveal the cards from the top of your library until you reveal an artifact card. Put the card onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Deals damage to you equal to the number of cards revealed this way. That's kind of fun. So this actually is a really cool way to mitigate this effect. This effect is leveraging like a transmogrify style effect where you get rid of something that you don't necessarily care about and trade it in for something that could be much stronger. Now, in those styles of decks where you're using like transmogrify or, well, there are a number of other effects like it, you want to have only one eligible target in the deck. That way you know exactly what you're getting. So if I know if I'm playing an Explorer game and somebody hits Transmogrify, I know I'm going to see an Agent of Treachery or a Titan of Industry, maybe a Coma Cosmos Serpent if my opponent's feeling saucy. But in all likelihood, it's probably going to be Agent of Treachery because it's just the strongest card available because of that ETB. In any event, this card prevents you, or it punishes you for taking that approach. Because especially in Commander, if I only have one eligible target in the deck, like let's say I only have like Meteor Golem, for example, I'm just pulling it off the top. Like if Meteor Golem is my only artifact, I could use Audacious Reshapers to spin into a Meteor Golem. Cool, all right, neat. And I'm gonna get that ETB, get to blow something up. All right, could be good in theory. However, because damage is dealt to me equal to the number of cards revealed this way, if I take that route, what I'm going to be doing is if Meteor Golem's near the bottom of my deck and I'm in a Commander game, I could rip this and I could end up taking 70 damage just from this card. And that is likely to be that. And a Meteor Golem's not worth that. This is not. So the way that this encourages you to build your deck is with a ton of eligible targets and little sack fodder that you can just dump. And like I said, Mishra produces a sackable creature that dies at the end of turn regardless. That is an artifact. So those two work really, really nicely together. You create the Mishra's Warforged, you maybe attack with it. If it survives, and to turn you activate this, and there's not even a mana value to the activation, you just tap it. And then you just flip cards until you flip another artifact. This time, you can keep it around, and that artifact goes directly onto the battlefield. And it could be a 7-drop. It could be a 10-drop. It could be huge. That doesn't matter. The thing that matters is how many cards are revealed. So if you hit a land pocket, you might end up taking 4 or 5 to this thing. But in a deck like this that is so overloaded with artifacts, you're probably going to be taking 3-4 damage maybe. But you're going to be getting new stuff that you can work with each turn. That's really cool. I like that. I like the design of this card a lot. Yeah. And it doesn't give you a ton of control over what you get, which is great. I like it. All right, we also have Emery, the Lurker of the Lock and Old Border. This card is great with artifact decks. It's an absolute, it was introduced in Eldraine and kind of immediately became an awesome artifact card. Just killer. It's great. Yeah. Fane the Broker. This, I believe, is a new one as well. 3/3 for 2 and a black. Legendary creature, human warlock. Tap, sack a creature. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Tap, remove a counter from a creature you control. Create a treasure token. Or tap, sacrifice an artifact. Create a 2/1 white and black inkling creature token with flying. And you can pay 4 to untap Fane the Broker. So this gives you a ton of options. And this gives you the ability to convert one resource into another. Now, It's a little bit expensive and it's a little bit goofy in how you get there. But I have no doubt there's combo potential here. There is definitely stuff you can add to Fane to make weird engines where you're just pooping out Inklings left and right. I have absolutely no doubt. No doubt at all. So yeah, keep an eye out for this thing. It's gonna be a thing. All right. Farid, Enterprising Salvager, 3/3 for 3. Whenever a non-token artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, create a colorless artifact token named Scrap. Pay 1 and a red, sacrifice an artifact, choose one, put a +++ counter on Farid. It gains menace until end of turn. Go target creature or discard a card, then draw a card. Cool stuff. I like the fact that it just produces an artifact token. Like, Scrap has no properties. Therefore, it's not a creature. It's just an artifact that does nothing. It just is an artifact. It counts towards your artifacts, and it gives you something to sacrifice. So if you sacrifice an artifact creature or even just another artifact, it just that is a card. It immediately replaces itself with another artifact you can sacrifice for value in some way, and it gives you a tool, a place to dump those artifacts. It gives you a sack outlet for it. Like, really good stuff. Like, I think that's neat. Yeah, all in all, really good stuff. Yeah. Muzio, Visionary Architect, 1/3 for 1 blue, pay 4, tap, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the highest mana value among artifacts you control. You may put an artifact card from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest of the bottom of your library in any order. This deck very much wants to be manipulating the top of the deck, it seems like, which I'm cool with. I'm very cool with that. Yeah, this is interesting stuff. And all of these, like these cards specifically that we've been looking at, are all decent commanders in their own right, but they're all monocolor. So you could even build a deck around these specifically. And I don't think that's an accident. I have no doubt the Wizards did that very, very intentionally. Yeah, we have Silas. We've seen Silas before. Joyro, Weatherlight Captain. If you have never gone up against Joyro, Weatherlight Captain, it's a thing. The amount of cards you can draw off this thing is absurd. Like, Joyra hooks you up. When you are casting artifacts, you're drawing cards. It's that simple. So Joyra is amazing, and here we have an old border Joyra. That's gonna be master. Like, that's, yeah, people are gonna want that. We also have old border Traxos, Scourge of Krug. I want to highlight this one because it's got new art and it looks freaking awesome. I don't know what a good place for this card is yet, but it's a 7/7 trampler for 4 with a downside. It doesn't untap during your untap step, and an ETB's tapped. But whenever you cast a historic spell, it untaps. Like, that's easy to do. So there should be ways around this and ways to take advantage of Traxos. So I think it's pretty darn cool. We also have Astronaut the Uncaring. This is an alternate commander for this deck. It is a 1/4 for 5, 2 blue, black, red with Death Touch. Whenever you activate an ability of an artifact or creature that isn't a mana ability, if one or more permanents were sacrificed to activate it, you may copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. This card is really cool. However, it doesn't combo with Ashnod's Altar, which is kind of a bummer. Except for the Kaida part, it's like a super bummer because Ashnod's Altar is a mana ability. So yes, you have to sacrifice to activate it, but this doesn't double that effect, which is kind of a bummer. That said, there are a ton of other sacrifice abilities out there that Ashnod can start duplicating, and that's gross. Like, there's a lot that she can do that is going to be really difficult to tangle with. So yeah, I think this card is also awesome in her own right. Old Border Brutaclad, let's go. Yeah, Geth as well. Good stuff. Hellkite Igniter. Flying Haste, you can pay 2. It gets +X/+0 till end of turn where X is the number of artifacts you control. Note, that doesn't require any kind of tap. So as much mana as you have, you can dump it into this. So it's a 5/5 for 7 with Flying and Haste, but it has like mega fire breathing because in this deck specifically, that's going to be like pay 2, give Hellkite Igniter like +9/+0 a lot, if not way more than that. So it's going to be insane. Like, that card's cracked. That's going to end. This is going to just, in Commander, there are going to be games where this just drops and ends someone immediately. Like, I think that's definitely going to happen. Yeah. Herald of Anguish, 5/5 for 7 with Improvise, meaning you can tap an artifact you control to pay for 1 of its mana values, or 1 generic of its cost. Flying, at the beginning of your end step, each opponent discards a card and pay 1 in a black, sack an artifact. Target creature gets -2/2 until end of turn. It's a sack outlet. It's removal, and it even forces your opponent to discard, and you get a 5/5 flying body into the mix. That's all worth 7, and the fact that you can even cheat it out faster if you have artifacts lying around, get out of here. That's gross. Workshop Elders, I believe this was a card from Eldraine that was like okay, but never really had a home, and cool. Like, this is possibly a good place for it. Blast Furnace Hellkite. As you can see, Mishra apparently likes the dragons, which I'm cool with. So 5/5 for 9 with Artifact Offering. You may cast this spell as though it had flash by sacrificing an artifact and paying the difference in mana cost between this and the sacked artifact. Mana cost includes color. So that's insane. So what you can do on your opponent's end step before it goes to your turn, you could sacrifice a creature you have. You could sacrifice an artifact you have lying around, and then throw the Blast Furnace Hellkite down. We're just paying the difference. So if you have a creature like Mirror Enforcer, for example, that has affinity for artifacts and a mana value of 7, you could play Mirror Enforcer for like 1 or 2, and then like go around the table on the opponent's end step before you start your turn. Sack the Mirror Enforcer, play this out for red. You get a 5/5 flying double strike dragon that says creatures attacking your opponents have double strike. This card's absurd. Straight up absurd. So in that situation, you can cheat it down stupid early, and on top of that, you get a 5/5 flying double striker just straight up, and this card encourages your opponents to attack each other. It's not full-on goad, but it helps. Because like, oh, you can attack me with that 5/5. True, and I'll take 5 damage. Fair enough. But if you attack our mutual enemy over there, all of a sudden your little homie's got double strike and you're gonna hit them for 10. You might want to think about that. Like, insane. Straight up insane. This card's bonkers. Metalwork Colossus costs X less to cast, where X is the total mana value of non-creature, non-artifacts you control. This sucker's free a lot of the time. Speaking to my point about gigantic things that are very, very inexpensive. And on top of that, you can sack 2 artifacts, return them from your graveyard to your hand. Metalwork Colossus is a powerhouse, and it fits this deck perfectly. You love to see it. All right. So the creatures are awesome. Like, bottom line, the Mishra deck doesn't have as many creatures as the Urza deck, but they're all fantastic. It would seem a lot of them are pretty expensive, but man, they're worth it. We got Faithless Looting. It's Faithless Looting. This thing rocks. And old frame. Let's go. A beautiful old frame braid. Expressive Iteration. I gotta say, EI I think actually looks really, really good in the gold old multicolor border. Just throwing that out there. But like, yeah, same is true with Bedevil. Looks great. But Bedevil, Chaos Warp, a Braid, Faithless Looting, Expressive Iteration, Thirst for Knowledge, Factor of Fiction, Thoughtcast, I mentioned this earlier, like that's in the mix. Blasphemous Act. I mean, these precons are not messing around, everybody. Like, these are legit commander decks that you can absolutely bust out at a commander game, even a pickup game, and feel pretty decent about it. All right, so now we're into the meat of this deck. These are the non-creature artifacts. First up, Executioner's Capsule for 1. Pay 1 and a black, tap sacrifice, destroy target non-black creature. Just kill a thing. Love it. Nihil Spellbomb. This is another great one. These Spellbombs are just classic. When they enter the graveyard, or when they go to the graveyard from the battlefield, in this case, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card, and you can sacrifice it to exile target player's graveyard. Pretty good stuff. Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet, again, just great. Fellwar Stone again. Like, these are just awesome commander staples, all with the old border frame. Ichor Wellspring, I love this card, and it fits this deck like a freaking glove. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. Other than that, it's just a thing. Like, you pay 2, drop it, you have an artifact enter the battlefield that you can also sacrifice for value, and it replaces itself in your hand. So you drop it, you draw. You then sack it to something, you draw again. That's all it does. But man, that is so good in this kind of situation. Idol of Oblivion, artifact for 2, tap, draw a card. Activate only if you created a token this turn, which this deck does all the time. The commander creates tokens, remember? And then you can pay 8, tap, sack it, create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. Good stuff. Unfortunately, that Eldrazi creature token is not an artifact, which is a bummer, but that's okay. Bindstone, Mnemonic Sphere. This is a kind of bread and butter common from Kamigawa, so cool, it works. All right, we also have Mycosynth Wellspring for 2. When it enters the battlefield or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may search the library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Oh, very similar to Very similar to the other, what is it? The Ichor, I already forgot. I'm the worst. Ichor Wellspring. Yes, the Mycosynth Wellspring is very similar, except it only grabs lands. Okay, that works. Oni-Cult Anvil, this thing is like the key engine of this deck. Like, you don't need it to be successful, but my goodness, it pops like a mother if you have it. So, yeah, Oni-Cult fits this deck perfectly, like it had to be in here. Prophetic Prism, awesome, just mana fixing, and it draws cards when it enters. Like, cheap artifacts that draw cards when they enter are going to be really important here. More Signets, you love to see it. Scriven Mechanic enters the battlefield, put in a graveyard, create a 1/1 color servo token. There's you can see the theme. These are like 2-drop artifacts that give you value when they enter, then value when they leave. Perfect. Yeah. Stronic Resonator. Oh goodness, this card. I got scars from this card. Yeah, pay 2 tap, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. That's gonna be gross. And this is triggered abilities specifically. So, like, for example, Mishra's ability at the beginning of combat by creating that construct token, you can double it. Like, you can double that and get 2 4/4s that are copies of these other, you know, these non-artifact creatures that we're looking at. So, like, if you copy your Ichor Wellspring, for example, you know, you have a 4/4 that draws a card when it enters the battlefield. You attack with it, then it dies, and you draw another card. Like, that's just great. It's just so simple and so effective. You know, Commander's Fear, this is a great mana rock that, again, if Mishra copies, you can sack it before the end of turn and you draw a card off it. Love it. Cursed Mirror, this is a red artifact for 2 and a red that taps to add red, so it's a mana rock. As it enters the battlefield, you may have it become a copy of any creature on the battlefield until end of turn, except it has haste. That rules. So it's a creature with haste that is a copy of something. Now, it says any creature on the battlefield, it does not, so it can be your opponent's, but it does not specify that it retains its name or that it's non-legendary. So if you copy a legendary creature you control, you will have to sacrifice one of them, which there may be situations where you want to do that, but it's going to be few and far between. But yeah, so I gotta say that card rules. Like, this design is kind of this is what I'm talking about here. Yeah, you'll love to see it. Oblivion Stone, yes, Fate Counters. Fate Counters, this card, if I'm not mistaken, was originally introduced in Mirrodin. I believe it was the first Mirrodin expansion. And it was awesome. A lot of us Timmy players looked at it and were like, is there a way that I can break this? And the answer is no, it's just way too expensive, but it's a cool idea. So if you're not familiar, it's an artifact for 3. You can pay 4, tap, put a fate counter on target permanent. And then you can pay 5, tap, sacrifice Oblivion Stone, destroy each non-land permanent without a fate counter on it, then remove all fate counters from all permanents. So what you can do is, the idea is you play it on 3, you know, you activate it on 4, protect your 2-drop or whatever, trigger it on 5, everybody dies except your little 2-drop, which you then you hope can carry you through to the game. It doesn't work very well. However, in Commander, if you can hit it in the late game where you've got a ton of mana lying around, and maybe a way to untap this so you can like put 2 fate counters on a thing, then rip it like all within the course of like a turn, maybe 2, then all of a sudden you're looking at a pretty powerful situation. Also because the boards are just bigger, like you have just more stuff to blow up. So like a board wipe in Commander is just going to be more impactful than a board wipe in 1v1 in most situations. So yeah, I think Oblivion Stone is actually just interesting in Commander and pretty fun. Yeah, Hedron Archive, cool. Lithoform Engine, this is another one. We have a lot of ETB triggers. We have a lot of death triggers. We have a lot of copy triggers. We have a lot of triggers with decided triggers. So being able to copy triggers upon copying triggers is just awesome. Great stuff. Machine God's Effigy, artifact for 4. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact, and it has tapped on add 1 red. So this is very similar. This is very similar to the Cursed Mirror. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, it's a clone mana rock. What? Like, why is that a thing? Now, it is colorless to cast, so if you're in a deck that's multicolored like this one, like we're in Grixis here, we might need blue mana, but if we don't have access to it, this can give us access to blue mana without requiring blue mana in the upfront casting cost, which is really nice. And on top of that, it just becomes a thing. I love it. Love it. Oh, keep it going. Let's go. Smelting Vat, pay 1 tap, sack another artifact, reveal the top 8 cards of your library, put up to 2 non-creature artifact cards with total mana value less than or equal to the sacrificed artifact's mana value from among them out of the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. you kind of like 2-for-1 yourself with an element of chaos. That's actually really cool. I like it. Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, I gotta say, both these decks look straight up fantastic. Bottom line, both of these decks look great. Absolutely great. And I of the two, I would probably play, like if I were to pick up both of them, I'd probably play the Mishra deck more just because it's more my style. But I mean, this is just, they're just so freaking good. I don't even know what else to say. And Urza, or the Mishra deck, also has the artifact lands. So good stuff. Just good stuff. Yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for words, which doesn't happen to me very often. I talk a lot, as you know, because we've just been looking over these lists and just gushing over cards for the last 40 minutes. But I gotta say, I think Wizards knocked it out of the park with these. They each have a functionally unique identity while both being built around artifacts. And additionally, they capture the flavor of these two characters in cool, interesting ways. I also love the fact that they both share black and blue. You know, while Mishra is red and Urza is white. But other than that, they share those two colors in common because they are both scholars. They're both artificers. They did both come from the same background of academia and study. So that's the blue. Meanwhile, they are both ambitious. They have their agendas that they are pursuing, and they are willing to make dire sacrifices to achieve them. So I think that aligns with black pretty darn nicely. Mishra is more passionate and more, he's more willing to let his anger and emotions take over. So that's red. Whereas Urza's a little more focused and willing to, try to follow some kind of order. He's a little more lawful, if you will. And so that, I think, represents white nicely. So I gotta say, this is a slam dunk, home run. These decks look great. I don't know if I'm gonna pick them up, but I'm really thinking about it. Yeah, I don't usually buy precons, but I might make an exception for these. Not only because they look like killer decks, but I also think a lot of the cards are going to retain their value over time because they've gotten a unique style here in the old frame. So, great stuff. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for making it to the end. I'm impressed because this was a long one. Yeah, if you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe for future videos like this. I ramble on this channel a lot, so if you enjoy that, definitely stay tuned. And yeah, I appreciate it very, very much. I'll catch you on the next one.